Hello, everyone, and welcome to the delayed but not denied Theater of the Golden Silent Films podcast, where we are about to talk about our first Russian silent film experience on the big screen. If you're unaware, YouTube is the new home of exclusive short-form content. To stay up to date on our YouTube adventures and our Prime Universe audio podcast, follow us on Instagram, Bluesky, and Twitter or X. And while you're here checking us out on YouTube, like and subscribe. It means so much to us and our silent film channel of tomorrow. Now, there's a reason that the subtitle of this episode is The Lost Episode. This was an episode we had penciled in and scheduled over a year ago. This screening went down on March 29th, 2024 at the Frick Fine Arts Building on the campus of the University of Pittsburgh. It was such a cool event and my first time inside that luscious building that is the Frick Fine Arts Building. Back in 2024, we were smack dab in the middle of our international season of silent film coverage. I had a lot of great ideas and plans to include this as part of our year-long travelogue, but life found a way, and it didn't quite come to fruition. I was really bummed because it was such a cool film and an experience, but unfortunately it just was not meant to be. Now, with the start of our YouTube shorts, it seemed to me like the perfect time to right the wrongs of the past and give this film its proper due. Even if it's in a somewhat abbreviated form. So I dug up some photos, an unused Tyler Stoner interview, and set my sights on talking about Russia's first feminist film from all the way back in 1914. First, let's talk about how the screening came to pass and what was on the schedule of events. Now, the screening was sponsored by Pitt's Department of Slavic Languages and Literature, the Department of Music, the Film and Media Studies program, the Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies program, the Center for Russian, East European, and Eurasian Studies, and, favorite here, the Pittsburgh Silent Film Society. If you were there, you would have been lucky enough to get an introduction from Anna Kovalova. She is a scholar of 19th and 20th century Russian culture and early cinema. She is also the Dobro Slovo National Slavic Honorary Society faculty advisor. Now, as someone who knows very little, like me, about Russian history, and even less about Russian film history, Kovalova was great in really setting the scene in context for the movie about to be shown. Another really cool component to this event was the live piano accompaniment provided by Tyler Stoner. This incredibly talented musician really tore the house down in his first ever silent film accompaniment. He brought a distinct and really emotional musical perspective to the film. It was an honor and a joy to hear his first score, and I am happy to report he has been accompanying silent films here in Pittsburgh in the months and years since that great acclaim. Now, be sure to stick around because we will get some musical insights from Tyler later on in the episode, kind of taking us inside his creative process. Now, with the event discussed, let's turn to the movie itself and why it's such an important and groundbreaking cinematic work. Now, this movie was directed by Pyotr Chardinin and was released on April 27, 1914. It stars Vera Urneva, Ivan Mushchikin, and Maria Morskaya. Now, this film focuses on a strong-willed female obstetrician, Anna Betskaya, who is played by Urneva. She is enjoying a brilliant career and has wide popularity and acclaim across the land. In fact, her office is constantly full and business is super good. Perhaps a little too good, or at least her husband seems to think so. As a result of her working so many hours, her husband, Nikolai, feels rejected and neglected. Nikolai is played here by Ivan Mushchikin. Her seemingly endless commitment to her medical work really upsets Nikolai. Soon, a trip to a local cafe leads to infidelity when Nikolai meets the charming and attractive waitress Yuzha, and he is immediately smitten. Soon, a full-fledged relationship begins. This infidelity eventually results in a pregnancy. The role of the lovely Yuzha is played here by Maria Morskaya. Now, the deceit is eventually uncovered after some time when the pregnant Yuzha falls gravely ill. You see, this childbirth has gone all kinds of wrong, and an emergency call goes out to superstar OBGYN Anna. She comes to help only to find her husband at Yuya's bedside. After some dramatic moments, the two women decide to work cooperatively and raise the baby together. It's a really fascinating and poignant story about Anna choosing what is most important to her home life or career. And it's just as vital and important a story today as it was nearly 110 years ago when it was originally made. It was such a great watch and even better to be amidst a theater packed with enthusiastic moviegoers. While the film's narrative, acting, and direction were all top-notch, the accompaniment from Tyler Stoner really pushed the event over the top. As I mentioned earlier, this screening was a first-time affair for the young composer. It was made all the more remarkable as Tyler had very little experience with silent film as a whole. "I'm completely new to the silent film genre," he told me. "I did a little research to prepare for this project, but it was my first time viewing a full silent film. I can say after this that I am a fan of the genre now." Though he may have been unfamiliar with the magic of silent film, Tyler is incredibly familiar with the musical arts. He has so much experience and knowledge with the piano, musical composition, and improv. Accompanying films was the perfect next step. That deep musical background is explained by Stoner when he tells me, "My background is mostly in classical music, but I'm constantly trying to break out into other genres. Before my undergrad, I studied piano at Carnegie Mellon Preparatory School, where I took piano lessons from Luz Manriquez and Rodrigo Ojeda, two amazing pianists in the Pittsburgh area. I studied music theory and composition at Carnegie Mellon University and graduated in 2021 in the midst of the pandemic. I had a premiere of an orchestra piece of mine titled Xenophon by the CMU Philharmonic in 2022. Since then, I've been teaching piano lessons and finding gig work as a pianist and composer. I've played in the DIY music scene in Pittsburgh as part of the band Little Gunpowder, and I recently got into playing silent films last year with The Woman of Tomorrow. If there's one word I would use to describe my style, it's eclectic." Considering how little he knew about silent movies, I was super curious as to how one even begins to prepare for something like this. Stoner explained, "I watched a few videos to prepare for the project. Someone recommended I watch a version of The Girl and Her Trust, with an original piano accompaniment, and it proved very useful for getting a sense of the mood and style I should aim for. I then watched The Woman of Tomorrow and took notes on the story while trying to come up with some initial musical ideas." The composer continued, "From then on, I would just watch the film and improvise over and over again until the ideas became more concrete. I also wanted to reference some Russian folk music, and being a piano teacher, I had worked on a few songs with my students already. So I made sure to include some of those songs as well in my improvisation. Overall, I practiced a couple of times a week for about a month until I felt comfortable improvising on each sequence of the film. There was so much really cool stuff going on in this picture, both thematically and narratively. I have no musical talent or creativity whatsoever, but for someone predisposed to musicality, I can imagine there is a lot in The Woman of Tomorrow to creatively chew on. Now, what scenes and segments of the film really spoke to Stoner as a composer? I really liked playing all of part 1 of the film, which to me felt like a solid 30 minutes of connected musical ideas, he told me. It had the most going on dramatically, I think, compared to part 2, which had more slice-of-life moments. If there was a particular section I enjoyed playing the most, I think it would be Yuzua's Name Day. I got to play around with a couple musical motifs from earlier parts of the film and convey a lot of changing moods surrounding the drama of Anna's discovery of the affair between Yuzua and her husband, Nikolai. For that, I wanted to convey the pain of that discovery for Anna, but also the juxtaposition of that and Yuzua and Nikolai's love. The fact that Tyler Stoner was new to this world of silent film proved really interesting to me. I was super curious as to what he thought of this film being such a newcomer to silence. It also piqued my interest that his entry point into the genre came with such an obscure picture like The Woman of Tomorrow. When speaking about his favorite moments from a viewing perspective, Tyler told me, "I'd have to say there are some beautiful shots in part 2. In particular, there is a shot by a lake where Anna and Borovich are celebrating their engagement, which reminded me of an impressionistic painting. I also think the acting was very enjoyable to watch. Like I mentioned before, I'm new to the genre, but I found that the acting was very tailored to the silent film experience by being dramatized but not overdone. I can appreciate that, and it didn't feel unnatural. This film was as powerful for its message as it was for its images. You could feel something special in the making and execution of this film, and this magic wasn't lost on Tyler as he composed this music. In fact, it was one of the things that really pushed him to make music that pays tribute to the film itself. In breaking down some of his inspirations with me, Stoner explained, "I think the nature of the screening is what inspired me the most. The Woman of Tomorrow is considered the first Russian feminist film, so that really made me want to do it justice. I wanted to capture a sort of romantic heroism in Anna, where even though many of the men in her life ended up failing her, she still finds success in her career as a mother and ultimately ends up finding love in someone who truly cares for her." As this episode starts to wrap up, I really wanted to make one more question out to Tyler Stoner. This whole thing was incredibly new to the composer, but I was really curious as to what surprised him most from this whole cinematic musical endeavor. One thing I did not expect was the amount of interest in the event, he told me. I didn't know that Pittsburgh had such a large community surrounding silent films, and I am very glad to have gotten a chance to play for it. It's always cool getting a chance to show others your hard work, especially when it's a group of people who appreciate the arts. That and the piano was very nice. Now, the screening itself, one of the fun things was that all the work that went into keeping the women of tomorrow alive and available to be enjoyed by audiences of tomorrow. To say the work on this film was a team effort is a bit of an understatement. The restoration for Part 1 involved the translation of previously restored intertitles. The intertitles for Part 2, however, were created and translated based on the surviving librettos and reviews. When I talk about those intertitles being translated, it was no small feat. It actually took a group of Pitt students a lot of time and hard work to take this incredible Russian film and make it possible to be appreciated by an English-speaking audience. That's huge, it really is. So many of these films disappear or destroyed or otherwise vanish, and it means so much to see these works get a little bit of an extended life. And by being introduced to new audiences, we can learn so much about ourselves and the world around us. It really was a special experience for me and for so many of the people in attendance. Before we head out, a huge thank you goes out to the incredibly talented Tyler Stoner for sharing his insights and experiences with us. If you want to learn more about him, he has a great YouTube channel which we will have a link to. There you can find 2 animated short films he wrote the music for, as well as some of his compositions for piano and some experimental stuff as well. If you're interested in modern piano music with classical and jazz mixed in, then you'll probably find something you like there. This really was a lost episode, and it feels so good to bring it back to life. Like many of those lost and forgotten, vanished silent films of yesterday, this episode feels like one of those found silent films that kind of gets a second lease on life, even if it took an extra year. I mean, it really has been an albatross around my podcasting neck having so much planned for this episode only to do nothing for so long. Even though this wasn't the super long deep dive I had in mind initially, the fact that it exists in any form really takes a load off my content creating shoulders. I really hope you've enjoyed this brief trip into Russian silence and Pittsburgh screenings. If you want to learn more about the Golden Silent Films podcast, you can find us on Instagram and Bluesky at Golden Silence Cast and on Twitter or X at Golden Silence 1. And while you are here on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. Your support means so much for us on this road to 100 subscribers. And never forget that the silents are golden, and the talkies, they're just a fad.